Okay, we're going to make a beautiful blind hem by machine, and it's very easy to do. Okay, first of all, I'm going to use the R foot, which is the foot that comes with most of the computerized machines. So how I'm going to fold my fabric is I do have it double folded down and my hem is marked. I'm going to put my pins in about 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the fold. And I've selected the blind hem stitch, which on my machine, which is the Elegante, is 2-01. And what it does 4 stitches forward and 1 zigzag. So how you put this on is, notice that there is a blade in the middle of the foot. That is a guide to guide the fold when you're doing the blind hem stitch. Okay, I'm going to put my threads underneath. I'm going to start out by putting my garment right sides down facing the machine, or facing the bed of the machine. I'm going to start out by the fold of the hem. In other words, the bottom of the hem is going to be facing the inside of my machine. I want the pin heads to the left of, like facing your left hand. And then when I'm ready to stitch, I'm going to take the pins and fold them over so that the head of the pins are now on the right hand side, and it's exposing this lip of fabric, which is just the hem of your fabric. I'm going to put the guide, or the fold of the fabric, right up against the guide right here. Okay, and notice it's right there. I always do a test stitch because the different thicknesses of the fabric may mean whether you get to catch the fold or not. And what it does is it's going to do 4 stitches forward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th one it's going to do a zigzag. And the left swing of the zigzag should just barely catch a thread of that fold. So I don't know if you can see it. So I'm going to stitch, and it's just barely catching. Okay. Now, if it is not catching, in other words, it is missing, this one is caught, which is hard to see. If it is not catching, in other words, say it's missing the foot, it's not catching the hem, then what you'd want to do is you want that zigzag to go over here more into the fold. So in that case, you're going to put the width of your zigzag to the negative. And when you do that, it'll probably change to a -1, and sometimes the arrow will point in that direction. If it's catching too big of a bite, because when you would turn it over, you'd see a big old black line. I'm using black thread. You would see a big straight line. You might be catching too much of the fold. In that case, you would set your stitch length to the positive, and that way it would make that zigzag a little more shallow. But right now, it seems to be catching just fine. Now, one thing I want to remind you, take the pins out before they reach the foot, because they will get caught on the blade. And do not sew fast, and sometimes it helps to use your seam ripper or a stiletto or any other implement to help hold that fold flat. And it'll just catch a little bit better. You're going to have to do a test stitch because each fabric is going to be different. And see, it is caught. And even though I am using black thread, I cannot see it. That is a perfect success. So it is so nice how it is caught, and therefore, and it's invisible on the front. Does a beautiful job. An alternative to the R foot is the adjustable Blindhem foot, and this one comes pretty much standard with the A-line machines. Some of those don't have the ability to move their their needle and they don't have computerized sewing. So you're going to use the same blind hem stitch that you would use that we used on the last one. The only difference is now on this one, instead of changing the zigzag, you're actually going to move this fence. This one, you set up your fabric the same way you did for the other one. The only difference here is now this foot also snaps on. We'll set this just like we did before. Okay, I have set this so that the needle is just barely catching in this fold. And I set the needle first, then I will raise the presser foot, and I will move that fence over right or left so that it is just along the edge of the fold. A little more. There we go. I'll remove the pin and I'm going to do the same stitch. This allows you a little more flexibility on the adjustment. So again, I'm going to stitches 4 stitches forward. It catches. And it's just, you can see it is just barely catching the fold. And that's what I want. You can hem all types of fabrics using this, but you have a little more adjustments that you have to make than you do with the R foot. Okay. And you can see you can barely see just a few little marks there, but if I had green thread, this would be perfectly invisible, and yet it has caught nice and evenly in the stitching. Does a great job.